A black cowgirl is publicly humiliated by a ruthless foreman, but he has no idea she's a master of a forgotten, deadly martial art. He thought she was just a quiet worker, someone he could push around to assert his dominance. He was about to learn that the quietest people carry the most devastating secrets. The foreman, Jed Thorne, shoved her hard. "I said, are you deaf, girl?" he sneered, his voice cutting through the tense silence of the cattle auction. Jurema stumbled back, her boots kicking up dust, but her face remained a calm, unreadable mask. Jed laughed, turning to the crowd. "See? Nothing but an empty stare." He took another step forward, ready to push her again, but this time something was different. Jurema's body shifted, lowering into a stance he'd never seen before, fluid and dangerous. When he lunged, she didn't just move, she flowed around him like smoke. In less than 2 seconds, the big foreman was on the ground, unconscious, and the entire town was frozen in shock. If you believe that true strength is often hidden in plain sight, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and comment with your city and the word justice so we know you're with us. The story unfolds in the arid plains of West Texas, in a small, struggling town called Redemption. The year is 1888. Redemption was a place built on grit and hope, but now it was being suffocated by the shadow of the Blackwood Cattle Company, a massive enterprise that wanted all the land and all the water. Jurema, a woman of quiet dignity and immense skill with horses and cattle, lived on a small ancestral plot of land with her aging father, Samuel, and her fiery younger brother, Leo. Her family was one of the last holdouts against Blackwood's aggressive expansion. They weren't just landowners. They were guardians of a history that ran deeper than any well Blackwood could drill. The central problem was Jedediah Jed Thorne, Mr. Blackwood's foreman. Jed was a cruel, ambitious man who used fear as his primary tool. His job was to break the spirit of the small ranchers, to buy their land for pennies on the dollar, and to crush anyone who resisted. The public auction was his stage. He'd corner ranchers, insult them, and rig the bidding to ensure they left with nothing. He saw Jurema's quiet presence as a challenge to his authority, a silent defiance he was determined to extinguish. He chose her to make an example, to show everyone that no one, especially not a black woman, could stand against the will of the Blackwood Cattle Company. But Jed's public provocation was a catastrophic miscalculation. The art Jurema used wasn't just fighting, it was capoeira, a fluid, powerful martial art passed down through generations of her family, a secret heritage that traced back to ancestors who refused to be broken. Her victory at the auction was more than just a physical act, it was a declaration. It shattered Jed's aura of invincibility and lit a spark of hope among the oppressed townspeople. However, this single act of defiance would do more than just embarrass a foreman. It would expose a secret about her lineage that even she didn't fully understand, attracting the cold, calculating eyes of the man Jed worked for, the powerful and unseen Mr. Blackwood. The fight wasn't over. It had just revealed the real enemy. Jurema had won the battle in seconds, but she had inadvertently started a war for the soul of redemption. Her victory would force her to dig into her family's past, to understand the true source of her power, and to confront forces far more dangerous than a simple bully. She had proven her strength, but could she protect her family and her community from the storm she had just unleashed? What happens when a hidden power is revealed to the wrong people? The dust settled. Jed Thorne lay motionless on the ground. For a long moment, nobody in the crowd moved or spoke. They had just witnessed the impossible. The town's biggest bully, a man who represented the crushing power of the Blackwood Cattle Company, had been taken down in the blink of an eye by a quiet woman he outweighed by 100 pounds. Jurema didn't look at him. Her eyes scanned the faces in the crowd, fear, shock, and in a few, a tiny, dangerous flicker of hope. She straightened up, her posture returning to one of quiet composure, as if nothing had happened. Her brother Leo rushed to her side, his eyes wide with adrenaline and pride. "Jurema, did you see that? You put him down like he was nothing." Before she could answer, their father, Samuel, grabbed both their arms. His grip was firm, his face etched with a deep, profound worry that overshadowed any sense of victory. "Not here," he whispered, his voice low and urgent. "We leave. Now." He didn't look at Jed or the stunned onlookers. He pulled his children through the crowd, which parted for them like water before a ship's bow. No one said a word. No one offered congratulations. They were too afraid of what would come next. The ride back to their homestead was heavy with unspoken words. The sun beat down on the dry earth, mirroring the heat of the tension between them. Leo was practically buzzing, replaying the moment over and over. Samuel, however, looked older than he had that morning. Finally, as their small, well-kept ranch came into view, he broke the silence. "You should not have done that," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of generations. "That art, the ginga, it is not for show. It is not for public spectacle." "He put his hands on me, father," Jurema replied, her voice steady and calm. "He was making a spectacle of me. I finished it." "He was a dog barking for his master," Samuel countered, reining in his horse. "You didn't just strike the dog, Jurema. You struck the master. Men like Blackwood don't forget. They don't forgive." "So we're supposed to just keep our heads down forever?" Leo burst out. "Let them walk all over us until they take everything?" Jurema did what was right. "What is right and what is wise are two different rivers," Samuel said, dismounting, "and they rarely flow in the same direction." That night, the atmosphere in their small home was thick. Samuel pulled out a heavy, locked wooden chest from beneath his bed. He opened it carefully. Inside, nestled in old cloth, was a worn, leather-bound journal and a single polished berimbau, the musical bow that was the soul of capoeira. He placed the journal on the table in front of Jurema. "Your great-grandmother wrote this," he said. "She wrote about the escape, about how they used the dance to hide their training in plain sight. They fought for freedom, yes, but they did it from the shadows. They survived because their enemies saw music and games, not warriors. You showed them a warrior today, child. You made us visible." Meanwhile, miles away, in a lavishly furnished office overlooking the vast expanse of Blackwood territory, Jed Thorne stood, his face swollen and purple, in front of a large mahogany desk. He couldn't bring himself to look at the man sitting behind it. Mr. Alistair Blackwood was a man who was rarely seen, but always felt. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. She moved like nothing I've ever seen, sir," Jed stammered. "It wasn't a brawl. It was something else. Strange." Blackwood finally looked up from his papers. His eyes were pale, cold, and intensely intelligent. He showed no anger, only a chilling, predatory curiosity. "A girl from the Samuel family, on that specific plot of land," he mused, tapping a long finger on a detailed map of the region. "Jurema's property was circled in red ink, and she possesses a unique skill set. How fascinating." "What do you want me to do, sir?" Jed asked, hoping for an order of violent retribution. "Want me to round up some boys? We can—" "No," Blackwood said, cutting him off with a quiet finality. "You will do nothing. You will not go near her, her brother, or the old man. You are a tool, Jedediah, and a blunt one at that. This situation requires a scalpel. I want you to watch them. I want to know who they talk to, where they go, what they eat for breakfast. I want to know the history of that land. There are old rumors about it. Rumors my father dismissed as folklore. Perhaps he was wrong." He leaned back in his chair, a faint, cruel smile playing on his lips. "She has revealed a piece on the chessboard I did not know she held. Now we wait and see how she plays it." The quiet that followed Jurema's return was a different kind. It wasn't the peace of the open plains. It was the suffocating silence of a town holding its breath. When Jurema rode into Redemption a few days later for supplies, the change was palpable. People who used to nod a greeting now found something interesting to look at on the ground. Conversation stopped as she passed. At Miller's Mercantile, the store owner, a man she'd known her whole life, avoided her eyes as he filled her order. "That'll be $2, he said, pushing the sacks across the counter without looking up. "Everything all right, Mr. Miller?" Jurema asked, her voice even. He finally met her gaze, his own filled with fear and regret. "Jed Thorne's men were in here yesterday, asking questions, reminding folks who signs their paychecks, who owns the bank. It's nothing personal, Jurema. I've got a family." He took her money and quickly turned away. She was being isolated, cut off from the community one person at a time. This was Blackwood's doing. It was a quieter, sharper violence than Jed's fists. The real trouble started a week later. The creek that ran through their property, the lifeblood of their small herd and crops, began to shrink. At first it was a subtle drop, but within days it was a shallow, muddy trickle. Leo rode upstream to investigate. He returned that evening, his face dark with rage. "It's a dam," he spat, throwing his hat on the ground. "A new one, fresh timber. It's on Blackwood's property line, right where the spring starts. He's cut us off. He's choking us out." Samuel looked at the setting sun, his shoulders slumping. "It's a trap. He wants us to react. He wants you to go up there with dynamite, Leo. He wants a reason to call the law on us, to claim we're criminals. So we just sit here and watch our cattle die?" Leo yelled, his frustration boiling over. "What's the point of Jurema's training if we don't use it to fight?" "The Ginga is not for blowing up dams," Samuel shot back. "It is for survival, for enduring, not for starting wars we cannot win." That night, unable to sleep, Jurema lit a lamp and opened her great-grandmother's journal. The handwriting was elegant, but the words were forged in hardship. She skipped past the early entries about the long journey west and found the sections on the capoeira itself. It was more than a collection of movements. It was a philosophy. "Our enemies believe strength is a hammer," she read aloud softly. "They see only the direct attack. They do not understand the river. The river does not smash the mountain. It flows around it, wearing it down over time. True power is not in the strike, but in the malicia, the cunning, the deception. Make them believe you are weak when you are strong. Make them believe you are retreating when you are advancing. When your enemy steals your water, do not fight for the stream. Find the source." The words resonated deep within her. Her father was right about the trap. Leo was right about the need to fight. But they were both thinking like their enemy. They were thinking with hammers. The next afternoon, a buggy pulled up to their homestead. It wasn't Jed Thorne or his roughnecks. A man in a clean, dark suit stepped out, carrying a leather briefcase. He was polite, well-spoken, and his smile didn't reach his cold eyes. "Good afternoon," he said, tipping his hat. "My name is Arthur Davies. I'm a legal representative for the Blackwood Cattle Company." Samuel stood on the porch, his hand resting on the frame near the old rifle he kept inside. Jurema and Leo stood behind him. "We have no business with Blackwood," Samuel said, his voice firm. "On the contrary," Davies replied smoothly. "Mr. Blackwood is aware of the difficulties this region is facing. The drought is severe." He gestured vaguely toward the dry creek bed. "He is prepared to make a generous offer for your land. Enough for you to relocate somewhere with more opportunity." He opened his briefcase and produced a document. "He is willing to pay $500 in cash today." It was an insultingly low price, but more than they could get from anyone else. It was a predator's offer, disguised as charity. "The land is not for sale," Jurema said, her voice cutting through the tense air. Davies' smile tightened. He looked directly at her, his gaze analytical. "Miss Samuel, I understand you are a person of remarkable talents, but talent does not make the rain fall. Mr. Blackwood's offer is a courtesy. It expires in 24 hours. After that, circumstances may force him to secure his own water rights more permanently. I suggest you consider what is best for your family." He tipped his hat again, got back in his buggy, and left a cloud of dust and threats hanging in the air. The scalpel had made its first cut. Davies was gone. The threat remained, hanging in the dry air like heat haze. Leo paced the porch like a caged animal. $500. He's stealing from us and calling it a gift. He gave us 24 hours. It's a death sentence, is what it is, Samuel said, his voice hollow. He sat heavily in his rocking chair, looking out at the thirsty land. He knows we can't survive without the creek. He's not buying land. He's collecting a corpse. Jurema stood looking at the document Davies had left on the rail. It was a perfectly legal deed transfer. Blackwood wasn't just a brute. He was meticulous. No, she said, her voice cutting through their despair. It's a chessboard. He just told us his next move. He thinks he's cornered the king. This isn't a game, Jurema, Leo snapped. Our cattle are already suffering. What are we going to do? We're not going to attack the dam, she said, looking directly at her brother. That's the move he wants us to make. That's the trap. She folded the document and tucked it into her pocket. I'm going to town. For what? To beg Miller for credit he's too scared to give? Leo scoffed. For information, Jurema replied, her calm infuriating him. Great-grandmother wrote, find the source. I don't think she was just talking about the water. Without another word, she saddled her horse and rode out, leaving Leo fuming and Samuel lost in worried thought. Her destination wasn't the mercantile or the saloon. It was the dusty, quiet county records office, a small brick building run by a man named Elias Thorne. Elias was Jed's older cousin, but the two men were nothing alike. Elias was a soft-spoken, scholarly man who was more comfortable with brittle paper than with people. He was also one of the few people in town not directly employed by Blackwood. He looked up, startled, as Jurema entered. Miss Samuel, he said, his voice barely a whisper. He kept glancing nervously toward the door. Elias, I need to see the original survey maps for this territory, the ones from before the county was officially drawn. Elias paled. Those are archived, very fragile. I'm not sure. I know my father's deed is legal, Jurema said, her tone leaving no room for argument. I want to see the land itself, the geography, the original water surveys. Hesitantly, Elias led her to a back room filled with rolled-up parchments. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and decay. After a long search, he unrolled a massive, hand-drawn map from the 1850s. It was a beautiful, intricate document detailing every hill, spring, and river in the region. Jurema's eyes scanned it intently. She traced the path of their creek back to its origin point on what was now Blackwood's land. But then she saw something else. Just inside the border of her family's property, hidden by a cluster of rocky hills, was a small blue symbol the cartographer had drawn. It wasn't marked as a spring or a well. It was a simple, stylized drawing of 3 wavy lines inside a circle. It was on no other map. What is this symbol? She asked, pointing. Elias leaned in, his glasses slipping down his nose. He squinted. I've never noticed that before. It's not a standard surveyor's mark. It looks more like, well, I don't know what it looks like, but his face told a different story. He knew something, or had heard something, a rumor, a piece of folklore. Thank you, Elias, Jurema said, rolling the map back up carefully. She had her first clue. The source wasn't just the creek. There was another source, a hidden one, on their land. That's what Blackwood was truly after. She rode home with a new sense of purpose, but it turned to ice when she arrived. Her father was on the porch, his face a mask of dread. Leo's horse was gone. So were 2 sticks of dynamite from the small shed they used for clearing stumps. He left an hour ago, Samuel said, his voice trembling. He said he wasn't going to let us die of thirst. He said Blackwood needed to learn what happens when you corner a man. Jurema's blood ran cold. Leo was playing the hammer. He had walked straight into Blackwood's trap. The 24-hour deadline wasn't just a threat, it was a timer. Blackwood knew their desperation would make one of them do something foolish. He had counted on it. Without a second thought, she spurred her horse, racing not towards the dam, but on a path to intercept her brother. The setting sun cast long, dark shadows across the plains. She was in a race against Leo's anger and Blackwood's cunning, and the clock was ticking. Undefined, Jurema rode hard, the wind whipping at her face. The landscape, familiar and comforting by day, was now a maze of shadows and indistinct shapes under the pale moonlight. She knew the shortcuts, the game trails that wound through the rocky outcrops and pushed her horse faster than was safe. Every gust of wind sounded like a distant explosion, making her heart pound in her chest. Leo was smart, but his anger was a fire that burned away caution. He saw the dam as a physical problem that required a physical solution. He didn't see the invisible walls of the trap closing in around him. She found him at the base of the new timber dam. It was a crude but effective structure, a chokehold on the valley's life. Leo was hunched over, working by the dim light of a small lantern, his hands moving quickly as he wedged the dynamite sticks into a crevice in the main support beam. He was already uncoiling the fuse. "Leo, stop!" Jurema hissed, dismounting silently and approaching him. He jumped, startled, spinning around with a look of fierce determination. "Jurema, get out of here. This doesn't concern you." "This concerns all of us," she said, her voice low and urgent. "You are doing exactly what he wants. This is the excuse he needs. The moment you light that fuse, we become the criminals. The law will be on his side, and he'll take the land for nothing." "And if I do nothing, we lose it anyway," he shot back, his voice cracking with desperation. "We sit and watch it all turn to dust. I'd rather go down fighting." He held up a match, ready to strike it. "This isn't fighting, it's falling," she pleaded, taking a step closer. "Great-grandmother's journal. She wrote about cunning, not force. We have another way. There's another source of water on our land. I found it on a map." Leo hesitated, the match hovering. For a second, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. Another source, where? A slow, cruel chuckle echoed from the ridge above them. An excellent question. Both of them froze. A figure stepped out of the darkness, silhouetted against the moon. It was Jed Thorne. He wasn't alone. At least a half-dozen men materialized from the shadows behind him, rifles held loosely but ready. They had been waiting. "I knew you couldn't resist," Jed sneered, his voice dripping with satisfaction. His bruised face was twisted into a triumphant grin. "Mr. Blackwood sends his regards. He appreciates you bringing the evidence of your planned felony right to the scene of the crime." Leo instinctively raised the dynamite as if it were a weapon. Jed laughed again. "Go on, boy, light it. Give the sheriff a real easy report to write." Jurema's body shifted into the low, fluid stance of the Ginga. Her mind was racing. 6 men, all armed. Leo was exposed. This wasn't a fair fight. It was an execution waiting to happen. "You don't want him, Jed. You want me." "Oh, I'll get to you," he said, his eyes glinting. "But first, we handle the bomber." 2 of his men started to move down the slope, flanking them. Jurema moved. She was a blur of motion, a whirlwind of controlled chaos. She launched herself not at Jed, but at the 2 men approaching. A spinning kick, the armada caught the first man in the temple, sending him sprawling. She ducked under the swing of the second man's rifle butt, her hand snaking out to grab the barrel, using his momentum to pull him off balance and send him crashing into the dam wall. But it was a diversion. While all eyes were on her, a third man, who had circled around in the darkness, slammed the stock of his rifle into the back of Leo's head. Leo crumpled to the ground, the dynamite and matches spilling from his hands. "Leo!" Jurema cried, turning back. It was the opening Jed needed. He brought his own pistol up, not aiming at her, but at her brother's unconscious form. "That's enough," he commanded. The fight drained out of Jurema instantly. She stood, breathing heavily, trapped. Jed walked down the slope, kicking the dynamite sticks into the muddy water. He stood over Leo, the gun still aimed at his head. "The offer from Mr. Davies has changed," he said, his voice cold and final. "The price is no longer $500. The price for your brother's life is the deed to your land. You will sign it over clean and legal, or my cousin Elias will be filing a death certificate alongside an arrest warrant for a dead bomber. Your choice." The world narrowed to the barrel of Jed Thorne's pistol aimed at Leo's head. The moonlight glinted off the steel. Jurema's training, her speed, her power, all of it was useless. Every instinct screamed at her to attack, to move, to fight. But the cold, unblinking eye of that gun held her in place more effectively than any chains. Her breath was shallow. The lives of her ancestors, the sweat and blood they had poured into that land, screamed in protest. But the still form of her brother on the ground screamed louder. "All right," Jurema said. The word felt like broken glass in her throat. "You win." Jed's smile was a foul thing in the darkness. "I do enjoy the sound of that. See, not so tough when you can't dance your way out of it." He gave a slight nod. From the shadows, another figure emerged. It was Arthur Davies, the lawyer, looking as calm and collected as he had on their porch. He held the deed transfer document and a fountain pen. Blackwood hadn't just planned for a fight, he had planned for the victory. "If you would, Miss Samuel," Davies said, his voice devoid of any emotion. He held the paper out, using a flat rock on the dam as a makeshift table. "Sign here, and your father's signature here. We'll have him complete it in the morning." "My father will sign nothing," Jurema said, her voice dangerously low. "My signature will be enough for tonight. You can have the rest when my brother is home and safe." Davies looked at Jed. Jed shrugged. "She's not in a position to bargain, but it makes no difference. Get the old man's scrawl in the morning. For now, this'll do." Jurema walked forward, every step a surrender. The men with rifles watched her, their bodies tense, ready for a trick, but there was no trick. She took the pen from Davies. The ink was black against the white paper, a final, irrevocable stain. Her hand was steady as she signed her name, a name that had been tied to that land for generations. With a single motion, she severed that tie. She felt a piece of her soul tear away with the scratch of the nib. She handed the pen back. Davies inspected the signature with a professional eye, blotted the ink, and carefully folded the document, placing it in his leather briefcase. The transaction was complete. Jed watched her, his eyes full of malice. He had won, but he needed to rub the salt in the wound. He wanted to break her completely. He took a step back from Leo, then deliberately drew his boot back and kicked him hard in the ribs. Leo's unconscious body jolted with the impact, a pained grunt escaping his lips. Something inside Jurema snapped. A cold, silent fury erupted in her chest, so intense it felt like ice. Her face remained a mask, but her eyes locked on Jed Thorne with a look of pure, murderous promise. It was a look that said his life was now forfeit. He had crossed a line from business to personal, and he would pay for it. Jed felt a flicker of fear at that look, but he covered it with a sneer. "That's a deposit," he spat, "for the humiliation you caused me. Now get him out of here. You have until sunrise tomorrow to clear the property. Everything left on it belongs to Mr. Blackwood." He and his men turned and melted back into the night. Davies with them, their victory absolute. Jurema rushed to Leo's side. He was breathing, but shallowly. A dark bruise was already forming on his head where he'd been struck. Getting him on her horse was a struggle, a dead weight that tested her strength. The ride home was a slow, agonizing funeral procession for their legacy. When she arrived, Samuel was waiting on the porch, a lantern held high. The sight of his unconscious son draped over the horse broke something in the old man. His face, already etched with worry, seemed to crumble. "He's alive," Jurema said, her voice flat, exhausted. They were waiting for him. It was a trap. Together they carried Leo inside and laid him on his bed. Jurema cleaned and bandaged his head wound while Samuel stood by, his hands trembling. "The land?" Samuel asked, though he already knew the answer. "It's gone," Jurema replied, not looking at him. "I signed it over. It was the only way to save him." Samuel sank into a chair, his head in his hands. He didn't cry. The loss was too deep for tears. My grandfather, he built this place with his bare hands. Jurema finished tending to Leo and walked to the small table. She picked up her great-grandmother's journal. Her hands weren't shaking. They were perfectly still. She opened it to the page she had read before. True power is not in the strike, but in the malicia, the cunning, the deception. She had failed to understand. She had met their force with force. She had played their game on their board, and she had lost. But the game wasn't over. They thought they had taken everything. They were wrong. They had taken the dirt, the grass, the dry creek bed. They had left her with the one thing that truly mattered, a reason. "We leave in the morning," Samuel said, his voice muffled. "There's nothing for us here now." "You and Leo will leave," Jurema said, her voice so cold and quiet it made Samuel look up. "You will take the cattle we have left and go north to the territories. Find a safe place." "And you?" he asked, a new fear dawning in his eyes. Jurema closed the journal. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned with a cold fire he had never seen before. "They didn't just want the land, Father. They want what's under it, the symbol on the map. I'm going to find out what it is." She looked out the window into the darkness that had swallowed her home. "And then, I'm going to take everything from them." The sunrise was a painful, bloody slash across the horizon. Leo was awake, his head throbbing, his face a mixture of shame and fury. He tried to stand, to argue, but the look in Jurema's eyes stopped him. It was a look of settled finality, as cold and hard as granite. "You can't stay," Leo mumbled, his words slurred slightly. "This is my fault, I'll fix it." "No," Jurema said, handing him a canteen of water. "Your fault was using a hammer when we needed a key. My fault was not seeing the lock sooner. Now you will do as I say." She turned to her father, who was packing a small wagon with the last of their provisions. "Take the North Trail. Don't stop until you cross into the territory. Don't look back." Samuel pulled her into a fierce, desperate hug. "This is a fool's errand, Jurema. It's just land, your life." "It was never just land," she interrupted, pulling away gently. "He kicked your son while he was unconscious, Father. He tried to erase our name from this place. This is about justice now, the kind you don't find in a courtroom." She helped a protesting Leo into the wagon and watched as her father took the reins. She stood perfectly still in the yard of the home that was no longer hers, watching the wagon creak away until it was just a small speck against the vast, unforgiving landscape. When it was gone, she felt not grief, but a profound and terrifying emptiness. She was untethered, a ghost, and a ghost has nothing to lose. She went back inside the silent house one last time. She ignored the furniture, the memories, the life they had built. She went to the chest and took only two things: her great-grandmother's journal and the polished berimbau. From the kitchen she took a sharp skinning knife and a small sack for water and dried meat. She was no longer a rancher preparing for a cattle drive. She was a hunter preparing for the stalk. By midday she was moving, not on horseback, but on foot, staying low in the ravines and arroyos, using the terrain she knew better than the lines on her own hand. She moved with a silent, fluid grace, her body an extension of the shadows. She was making her way back to the land she had just signed away, but this time she was an intruder, an invisible presence. She reached the cluster of rocky hills marked on the old map as the sun began to dip towards the west. It was an unremarkable place, a jumble of sun-bleached rocks and thorny scrub brush. She began to search, not with her eyes, but with her senses. She felt for drafts of cool air, listened for the echo of dripping water. For hours, she found nothing. Then she remembered the symbol, 3 wavy lines in a circle. Not a drawing of a place, but a description of a feeling, the wind. She climbed to the highest point of the outcrop and stood still, closing her eyes, feeling the breeze on her skin. It was inconsistent. In one spot, near a thick, overgrown thicket of mesquite, the air was distinctly colder. moving with a steady, rhythmic pulse. It was breathing. She pushed through the thorny branches, ignoring the scratches. Behind them, obscured by a clever rock slide that looked entirely natural, was a dark opening, a narrow fissure in the rock, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The air flowing out was cool, damp, and smelled of deep earth and clean water. This was it, the source. Before she could enter, she heard the sound of approaching horses. She instantly flattened herself behind a large boulder, her body disappearing into the landscape. A moment later, Jed Thorne and 4 of his men rode into the clearing. They were not on a casual patrol, they were searching. "Spread out," Jed commanded, his voice impatient. "Blackwood said the old maps point to this area. He wants it found before the geologist arrives tomorrow. Check every crack and hole." One of the men grumbled. "What are we even looking for? A puddle? We're looking for the reason Mr. Blackwood bought this whole worthless valley," Jed snapped. "It's a cave system, an underground river, the stories say. Enough water to turn this entire desert green. Now stop asking questions and start looking." Jurema remained motionless, her heart beating a slow, steady rhythm. She watched them poke and prod at the rocks, clumsy and loud. They were blind. They were looking for a thing, a resource to be exploited. They didn't understand that it was a secret, and secrets only reveal themselves to those who know how to listen. They found nothing. As dusk fell, Jed called his men off in frustration. "We'll bring the geologist here at first light. He'll know what signs to look for. Let's go." They rode away, leaving Jurema alone in the gathering darkness. A slow, cold smile touched her lips for the first time in days. They had the land, the deed, the law on their side. They had geologists and maps and guns. But she had the truth. They thought she had retreated, a defeated girl running for her life. They had no idea she was already behind their lines, standing at the very heart of their prize. The game had a new board now, and she was about to set the rules. As the sound of hoofbeats faded, Jurema slipped from behind the boulder. The night was hers now. She lit no lantern. Her ancestors had moved in darkness, and so would she. She squeezed through the fissure, the cold stone pressing against her on both sides. The air was cool and clean. After about 10 feet, the passage opened up, and the darkness became absolute, a physical presence. The only sound was the gentle, constant murmur of moving water. She moved forward slowly, one hand trailing along the cavern wall. Her bare feet, accustomed to the hard earth, felt the subtle shifts in the ground. The floor was smooth stone, worn down by centuries of flowing water. The murmur grew into a clear, musical gurgle. She had found the river. It was perhaps 10 feet wide, the water shockingly cold and pure. This was the lifeblood of the valley, hidden beneath its sun-scorched skin. But as her eyes slowly adjusted to the faintest hint of moonlight filtering from the entrance, she saw that the water was not the only secret the cave held. The walls were not natural. They were covered in carvings, faint geometric patterns, figures dancing, and symbols she recognized from the deepest, most private pages of her great-grandmother's journal. This wasn't just a cave. It was a sanctuary, a record, a place where her people had not just hidden, but lived and preserved their culture. She ran her fingers over a carving of a figure in the middle of a ginga, a berimbau in their hands. A chill that had nothing to do with the cold ran down her spine. Her ancestors had trained here. They had fought from here. She was not the first warrior to stand in this darkness. A plan began to form in her mind, cold and precise. It was a plan born of malicia. They were coming at dawn with a geologist. They expected to find rock and water. They would find a ghost instead. She spent the next few hours exploring the immediate network of tunnels branching off the main chamber. She learned the acoustics, the choke points, the places where a shadow could remain a shadow, even with a lantern nearby. She found narrow ledges above the main path and small alcoves perfect for an ambush. This cave was not their prize. It was her weapon. She returned to the entrance chamber and sat in the darkness, the berimbau across her lap. She didn't play it. She just held it, feeling the history in the wood. She was not just fighting for land anymore. She was fighting for this. For the names and stories carved into the stone, for the memory of those who used the dance of freedom as a weapon of survival. Dawn broke. Jurema was positioned on a high ledge, 20 feet above the cave floor, concealed in a pocket of absolute darkness. She heard them before she saw them, Jed's loud, grating voice and the more measured tones of another man. "This is the spot," Jed said, his voice echoing into the cave. "The old maps are vague, but the geology points here." A third voice, calm and dripping with authority, cut in. "Then let us not waste time, Jedediah." Jurema's blood ran cold. She recognized that voice from whispered town gossip, from the fearful way men like Mr. Miller spoke his name. Alistair Blackwood. He had come himself. The master had come to claim his prize. The figures appeared at the entrance, silhouetted against the morning light. Jed, a nervous-looking man with spectacles and a rock hammer, the geologist, and Blackwood himself. He was smaller than Jurema expected, dressed in a fine city suit that looked absurdly out of place. But he moved with an aura of absolute power, his pale eyes scanning everything with a predatory stillness. "Remarkable," the geologist Peterson whispered as they stepped inside, his lantern casting flickering shadows on the walls. "The cool air suggests a significant subterranean system. There could be a vast aquifer here, Mr. Blackwood." "It is not an aquifer I am interested in, Mr. Peterson," Blackwood said, his voice echoing slightly. "The legends speak of a river that could irrigate this entire county and triple its value. Find it." They moved deeper into the cave, their lanterns cutting cones of light through the oppressive dark. Jed was swaggering, puffed up with pride in front of his boss. Peterson was tapping at the walls, his professional curiosity overriding his caution. Blackwood walked behind them, his gaze sweeping the darkness, missing nothing, yet seeing nothing. He was looking for a resource. He was blind to the spirit of the place. They walked directly below her ledge. Jurema remained as still as the stone around her. She could have dropped on Jed right then, ended it, but that was the hammer. Her plan was more subtle. It was about breaking their minds before she broke their bodies. They reached the main chamber with the river. Peterson gasped, "My God, it's true. The flow is strong, consistent. Mr. Blackwood, this is a geological marvel. This will change everything." Blackwood allowed himself a small, triumphant smile. "Indeed it will. Secure the site, Jedediah. I want blasting teams here by noon. We will widen this entrance and begin construction of the pumps immediately." As Jed nodded eagerly, a sound cut through the darkness, a single resonant, musical note. Twang. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once, echoing off the stone walls. The men froze. "What was that?" Jed demanded, raising his lantern, his other hand going to his pistol. Twang. A different note this time, lower, mournful. Peterson looked around nervously. "An echo. The wind." "There is no wind in here," Blackwood said, his voice tight, his confidence wavering for the first time. Then, from the depths of the darkness, a voice began to sing. It was a low, melodic chant in a language they did not understand. It was Jurema, singing an old capoeira lament her father had taught her, a song of loss and defiance, the song of the river, the song of the stone, the song of the ghost they thought they had banished. The hunt had begun. Jed Thorne spun around, his lantern beam cutting wildly through the darkness. "Show yourself! Who's there?" His voice was loud, but a tremor of fear ran beneath it. The singing continued, a haunting melody that seemed to seep from the very walls, carried on the sound of the underground river. Blackwood stood perfectly still, his face a mask of cold fury. "It's the girl. She never left." His voice was a low growl. "She's trying to spook us. Jedediah, find her. Peterson, you stay with me." "Find her? In here? It's pitch black," Jed protested. A pebble dropped from the ceiling, clattering on the stone floor just behind the geologist. Peterson yelped and jumped back, his eyes wide with terror. "It's unstable in here." "It's her," Blackwood repeated, his eyes scanning the oppressive darkness above them. "She's playing with us." Jurema moved silently along the ledges she had mapped in her mind. She was a phantom, a whisper in the dark. She dropped another small stone, this time on the far side of the chamber. As Jed and Blackwood turned towards the sound, she slipped down from her perch, landing as silently as a cat behind them. The darkness of the cave was her ally. Their lanterns were a liability, blinding them to anything outside their small pools of light. The first to go was Peterson. Jurema didn't harm him. She moved past him like a shadow and, with a swift, precise kick, sent his rock hammer flying from his belt. It clattered loudly into the river. Then she extinguished his lantern with a sweep of her hand, plunging his world into terrifying darkness. The man screamed, stumbling blindly away from the fight and towards the entrance. "Jed! The light!" Blackwood commanded. Jed swung his lantern around just in time to see a fleeting shape. He fired his pistol, the shot deafening in the enclosed space. The bullet ricocheted off the stone wall, whining past his own head. He had just revealed his position. From the darkness, Jurema's voice came, calm and clear. "You kicked my brother, Jed, a man on the ground." Jed fired again, blindly at the sound of her voice. "Come out and fight, you coward!" Another pebble clattered behind him. He spun and fired. Click! His gun was empty. Before he could even register his mistake, Jurema was on him. She didn't come from the front. She used the walls, a fluid cartwheel kick, an ow that brought her right to his side. Her foot swept his legs out from under him, and he crashed to the floor, his lantern flying from his grasp. It hit the stone and went out, leaving only Blackwood's light remaining. Jed scrambled for his knife, but Jurema was already there. A sharp, disabling strike to his wrist made him cry out in pain, his fingers going numb. She didn't kill him. She leaned in close, her voice a cold whisper in his ear. "This is for Leo. Duck!" A brutal, precise elbow strike to the side of his head, and Jed Thorne went limp, unconscious for the second time at her hands. Now, there was only Blackwood. He stood alone in the center of the chamber, holding his lantern high. He didn't look scared. He looked intrigued, like a collector examining a rare and dangerous specimen. "Magnificent," Blackwood said, his voice echoing. "Truly magnificent. All this power, this skill, wasted on a patch of dust." "This dust is my home," Jurema replied, her voice coming from the darkness to his left. "This cave is the heart of it." "It is a resource," Blackwood countered, turning slowly. "A tool to build an empire. Something you could never understand." He set his lantern down on the ground, the light creating long, dancing shadows. "You have a choice. You can die here, a forgotten ghost in a cave, or you can work for me. Your talents would be highly valued." Jurema stepped out of the shadows and into the edge of the light. She was in the ginga, her body swaying in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. "My talents are not for sale, and my ancestors did not die for you to build an empire on their graves." "Sentimentality," Blackwood sneered, reaching inside his fine suitcoat, "the fatal flaw of the lower classes." He pulled out a small, elegant derringer, a gentleman's weapon. "A pity," he fired. But Jurema was already moving, a low, spinning dodge that flowed like water. She wasn't where she had been a split second before. The bullet chipped the stone wall behind her. Blackwood fired his second shot, but she was already closing the distance, a blur of motion. She kicked the lantern, sending it skittering across the floor. The flame died, and the world was plunged into absolute, suffocating blackness. The hunt was over. The execution was about to begin. The darkness was absolute. It was a living thing, thick and suffocating. For Alistair Blackwood, a man who controlled everything he could see, it was a prison. The only sounds were the gurgle of the river, the drip of water from the ceiling, and the sound of his own ragged breathing. He was blind. "You cannot hide in the dark forever, girl," he called out, his voice tight with a rage he could barely control. He tried to sound commanding, but the echoing acoustics of the cave turned his words into a desperate plea. A soft, scraping sound came from his right. He turned, but there was nothing. Then the whisper of bare feet on stone from his left. He was a rat in a trap, and the hunter was simply watching him tire himself out. "This darkness doesn't scare me," Jurema's voice said, seemingly coming from directly in front of him. "My people were born in it. It's my home." "Everything is for sale," Blackwood said, his voice lowering, trying a new tactic. "This land, this water, you, name a price. I will make you a queen in this territory. You already had your chance to bargain," her voice answered now from behind him. "You offered $500, then you offered a bullet for my brother. My price is higher now." He felt a rush of air and instinctively flinched back. Something struck his hand, not a blow but a quick, sharp tap. His derringer was gone, knocked from his grip. It clattered on the stone floor, sliding away into the darkness. He was unarmed. Now the fear, cold and real, began to set in. He was a man of paper and power, of contracts and intimidation. He had never been in a physical fight in his life. He was prey. A swift, powerful kick swept his feet from under him. He fell hard, his head hitting the stone with a dull thud. He lay there gasping, the air knocked from his lungs. He could hear her moving closer, a slow, deliberate pace. He braced for the final killing blow, but it didn't come. Instead, he felt her hands searching his coat, his pockets. She took his wallet, not for the money, but for the documents inside. She found the folded deed transfer for her family's land. He heard the rustle of the paper. "This was your weapon," she said, her voice right beside his ear. "Paper, a signature, a lie dressed up as the law." She stood up. He heard her walk over to where Jed lay unconscious. More rustling. She had found the briefcase Davies had carried. It clicked open. "You thought you won," she said, her voice now filled with a cold fire. "You thought you took everything from us, but you just showed me how the game is truly played." She returned to him, dragging the briefcase. She knelt beside him and pressed something hard and metallic into his hand. A fountain pen, his own. What are you doing?" he stammered. "My great-grandmother wrote that cunning is the greatest weapon," Jurema said. "I'm going to prove her right." She unfolded a document and laid it on his chest. Even in the dark, he knew what it was. A blank deed. "You will sign over the deed to the Blackwood Cattle Company's main ranch, all of it. To my father, Samuel." Blackwood let out a choked laugh. "You're insane. That's not legal. It's under duress." "Is it?" Jurema replied calmly. "Or is it a private business transaction here in this cave? Just like the one you forced on me? There are no witnesses here, Mr. Blackwood, except for your foreman, who I'm sure will be happy to corroborate your signature once he wakes up. If he wakes up." The threat hung in the air, heavier than the darkness. He knew he was beaten, not by force, but by a logic so ruthless it mirrored his own. With a trembling hand, guided by her firm grip, Alistair Blackwood signed away the heart of his empire. Jurema took the pen and the deed. She stood up. "I'm leaving you Jed's empty pistol, Mr. Blackwood, and a single match. You can use it to find your way out, or you can use it to see the face of the man who helped you lose everything before you decide his fate." She turned and walked away, her footsteps sure and steady. She didn't look back. She emerged from the fissure into the bright, clean light of the Texas morning, leaving the two men in the darkness of the earth, surrounded by the ghosts they had tried to bury. The vengeance was complete, not with a death, but with a signature. She had taken his entire world with a scratch of a pen. Jurema didn't ride back to redemption right away. With the signed deeds in her possession, the one for her family's land and the one that gave them Blackwoods, she rode north. It took her 2 days to catch up to her father and Leo. She found them camped by a small stream, their faces grim, their future uncertain. When she showed them the papers, they stared in disbelief. Leo let out a whoop of joy, but Samuel was silent for a long time, his eyes tracing the elegant signature of Alistair Blackwood. "He will not let this stand," Samuel said, his voice heavy. "Men like him do not lose." "He already has," Jurema replied. He plays with paper and fear. I took his paper, and I showed him a fear he never knew existed. The return to redemption was different. The three of them rode in together, not as outcasts, but as the new power in the valley. Jurema went straight to the county records office. Elias Thorne looked up, his face pale with dread, expecting more trouble. Jurema simply placed the two deeds on his desk. "These need to be filed," she said, her voice calm. Elias's eyes widened as he read the documents. He looked from the deeds to Jurema, a flicker of something, awe perhaps, or terror, in his gaze. Without a word, he took his official stamp and made the transfers legal and binding. The Blackwood Empire had fallen, not with a bang, but with the quiet thud of a clerk's stamp. News travels fast in a small town. The story of what happened in the cave was never told, but the results were plain to see. The dam on the creek was gone, dismantled by workers now employed by Samuel. Water flowed freely again, not just to their ranch, but to all the small properties Blackwood had been choking out. The Blackwood Cattle Company, now legally owned by a man it had tried to destroy, was broken up. Parcels of land were sold back to their original owners for $1, a symbolic gesture that healed more than just financial wounds. Alistair Blackwood was never seen in redemption again. Rumors circulated that he had left in the middle of the night, a broken man. Jed Thorne was found wandering the plains a few days later, dehydrated and incoherent, his mind shattered by the events in the dark. He couldn't form a sentence, let alone an accusation. Life in redemption began to change. The suffocating fear was replaced by a fragile but growing sense of hope. Jurema's family, now owners of the grand ranch house on the hill, chose to stay in their small ancestral home. The big house was turned into a community hall, a school, and a place for town meetings. Jurema did not become a landowner or a businesswoman. She became a guardian. She was often seen practicing her capoeira by the creek at sunrise, her movements fluid and powerful. Young people from the town, once too afraid to make eye contact, began to watch her from a distance. One day, a teenage boy, whose father had lost his ranch to Blackwood's schemes, approached her. Can you teach me that?" he asked, his voice hesitant. Jurema stopped, a small smile on her face. She looked at the faces of the other young people watching, seeing in them the same mix of fear and hope she once felt. She remembered her father's words, "This art is not for show," but she also remembered her great-grandmother's journal. "It is for survival." She knew then that survival wasn't just about hiding. It was about passing the strength on. "The first lesson is not about fighting," she said, her voice carrying to the small crowd. "It is about balance. It is about knowing that true power is not in the strike, but in the cunning, and that the quietest person in the room is often the one you should listen to the most." She began to move again, not as a lone warrior, but as a teacher, the legacy of her ancestors flowing through her, no longer a secret, but a promise for a new generation. Justice had been served, not by breaking the law, but by turning the enemy's own weapons against him. And so, Jurema's story became a quiet legend in that corner of Texas, a tale whispered not in saloons over whiskey, but in homes and around campfires where people sought hope. It wasn't a tale of gunfire and glory, the kind that gets printed in dime novels. It was something far more profound. It was the story of a quiet strength that refused to be broken, a history that refused to be erased, and a justice that flowed not from the barrel of a gun, but from the cunning and resilience of the human spirit. She proved that you don't have to be the loudest voice or the strongest fist to make the biggest impact. Sometimes, the most powerful force for change is the one that moves in silence, guided by the wisdom of those who came before. The town of Redemption truly lived up to its name. It was redeemed not by a single act of violence, but by a community rediscovering its own strength, sparked by one woman's refusal to bow down. Jurema showed them that their heritage, The very thing that made them different and targets of scorn was not a weakness to be hidden, but a source of incredible power. She fought not only for her family's land, but for the soul of her community, and in doing so, she gave them back their future. Blackwood's empire was built on fear and paper. Jurema took both from him in the darkness, using his own weapons, a legal document and a deep-seated terror, to dismantle everything he had built. This story reminds us that the greatest battles are often fought not with fists, but with courage, intelligence, and an unbreakable connection to our roots. It's a testament to the idea that true power isn't about dominance, but about endurance and the will to protect what is right. Jurema's victory wasn't just in taking back the land, it was in proving that the philosophy of the river, the militia her great-grandmother wrote about, was stronger than the brute force of the hammer. She didn't smash the mountain, she flowed around it and wore it down to nothing. Thank you for joining us on this journey to redemption. If Jurema's story of silent strength and cunning justice resonated with you, and if you believe that the most powerful victories are the ones won with intelligence and heart, please show your support by hitting that like button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another emotional and empowering story like this one. We create this content for you, our dedicated community, and your engagement is what allows us to continue bringing these powerful narratives to light. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What was the most powerful moment for you? Was it the public takedown of Jed Thorne or the final silent confrontation with Blackwood in the cave? What do you think Blackwood did with that single match? And if you stayed with us through every twist and turn, through every moment of tension and triumph until the very end, please comment with the phrase, "I watched until the end." It's a small action that makes a huge difference for our channel and lets us know who our most loyal viewers are. Your support truly means the world to us. Don't go anywhere just yet. The journey doesn't have to stop here. There are 2 more amazing stories waiting for you on the screen right now. We've handpicked them just for you, confident that if you love Jurema's fight for justice, you'll be captivated by these as well. Click on one of the videos to continue watching. We appreciate every single one of you, and we'll see you in the next story.